Had a little listen to his podcast, huh?
Dude, it's educational. Besides, I've been wanting to listen to this one.
Welcome to Idling in the Impala, a podcast by and for lovers of supernatural and the fanfiction it inspires. Before we begin, just want to remind you to follow us wherever you listen so you don't miss any episodes or bonus content. If you love what we do and want an easy way to show your support, please consider leaving us a positive, all the stars, rating on your favourite listening platform. It helps SBN and fanfic lovers find us and share in the fun. I'm Kasey.
I'm Sandra, and we're doing another Tags and Tropes episode. We're going to tackle a tag or trope in fan fiction. We're going to break down some stats. We're going to share our overall thoughts, whether it's a give or a hard pass for us, and discuss a couple of fics that are prime examples of the tag or trope in action. Actually, it's more than a couple this time. We're going to be doing 4 because we just could not seem to narrow this down for many reasons.
No, I know why we're doing 4, but I figured you might want to introduce the topic first, and then I will explain why we're doing 4. So it's up to you. You finish your intro. She's written an intro, guys. Finish your intro.
The topic is Omegaverse, A/B/O. And the topic was suggested by Discord member Dreamer. And Dreamer, I hope I don't know, can Dreamer listen to this one? Is Dreamer going to be allowed to listen to this one? I think we're going to have to be good for Dreamer to listen to this one. We can't talk about anything.
See how this one will... I don't see how we can spoil the show with this one. We'll be careful.
Okay.
We'll be careful.
Okay.
We'll put a big post-it note that says no spoilers.
Okay, so this is technically a kink trope from what I heard on the fan lore page. And we're going to talk a little bit about it. Said it was a kink trope, Omegaverse. And it's wrangled mainly under the AO3 tags alpha/beta/omega dynamics and alpha/omega. So preface it before we get into the details, because there's a lot with this one. I'm hoping we're not going to... Okay, full disclosure, we're doing a lot of things different today. We're on video with each other, so we have not done like a full video like this since we started.
We've never done... the times that we've been on video together has been one or the other of us showing either something or a cat.
And then clicking off really quickly.
And then we're really done with it. But Sandra caught me while I was still fucking around with my hair this morning. So I was like, okay, you want to, and then I made her put her video on. I was like, show me your face. If I'm showing my face, show me your face. And then it was like, well, do we want to click off and try and do this? And then we were like, no, let's try. Let's see if we can do this. So unfortunately, there's a lot of making eye contact and then laughing.
and this is
I guess probably to see how much I talk with my hands as well.
Which is a lot. For a Brit, I'm pretty impressed. I was going to say there's a lot of hand gestures. The Italian in you has maybe, I don't know. I should say it's rubbed off, but you haven't seen me on video enough to see that would occur. This is also a really weird topic for us to first do a video for, because there's a lot going on with Omegaverse. But
and also when I yell at Sandra, I can stare into her eyes and yell at her, and I don't know how that's going to shake out, but now she gets to see all dumb faces that I do,
and you get to see my reaction, so this will be really good. But we want to preface...
This video is never going to be released ever but maybe if we manage to get through the fucking episode, we might consider it for special occasions. Yeah. Stay tuned.
So we're going to preface the discussion with, we try to follow the "your kink is not my kink and that's okay" motto, but we may interject.
Kink tomato!
Yes, we may interject our personal squicks about any given tag or trope, but it's in no way meant to yuck anybody's yum. Kasey, do you want to
Okay, the reason that there are 4 fics, normally we would pick 1 or 2. The reason that there are 4 fics,
and I didn't pick them this time. Usually I'm the one that for the 2 episodes of this that we've done.
Listen, it's gonna. I think when this one goes out, it's gonna get its own playlist, so it's officially a thing now. Okay. No, the reason is because I was looking this up, and I was looking at Wincest, and then I was like, I think I was looking it up with Dreamer because I outsourced this. I was like, please help me. I can't do this. She helped me, and then she was like, either she said something about hair or I said something about hair, and I was like, oh fuck, there's a whole thing of ABO that isn't Wincest. Shit. So I immediately scurried off to find some hair. But the thing is, can't talk about Omegaverse without talking about Wincest, because that is where it started. Supernatural was the fandom that invented Omegaverse, and it started, as far as it originated in the fandom, the very few specific AU kink meme prompts for the J2 RPF shit. Oh, okay. Well, we don't talk about J2 on this show anyway, because I've been through it, guys. I'm fucking broke. I can't afford to go and apologize in person. We don't do that here. But you just can't talk about ABO without talking about Wincest. So we have 4 fics. Okay, well, first of all, there are two categories because you have traditional, alpha, beta, or omega dynamics, and non-traditional. So we have to have one of each anyway. But then you can't talk about this without Wincest. So in deference to Sandra, because I love her, I found some Dean reader stuff. So we have a traditional and a non-traditional Dean/reader ABO. And then we have a Wincest, traditional and non-traditional. So that's why we have 4. And I found them because, Sandra, why did I go and find the fix this time?
Because I don't really read this stuff.
That's not the reason.
Why isn't the reason?
You don't like it. So you don't read it because you don't like it.
Well, I've read
Sandra hasn't found the ABO fic that speaks to her yet.
I've read a few that I think I like because I like the writing style of a few of them. And I there's one that BJ's written. I'm sorry, I don't remember. And I know you have one that I don't even know if I've read. When we had BJ on, she's written a really long one.
Is it the Bo Allen one?
No. I read that one. That one was good too. I did like that one. So I think it's more about like, I don't know, it's got to like grab me in another way. And usually it's got to be like the way it's written. But we'll talk about, I think, why it's not my thing. Like basically it's not my kink situation. Should we talk about what it is? Because if some people don't know what the hell we're talking about. So alpha/beta/omega, sometimes called alpha/omega or Omegaverse, is a kink trope wherein some people have defined biological roles based on a hierarchical system. And again, this is from fan lore. The terms were borrowed from older behavior research on captive wolves that had been misappropriated by popular culture, but do not reflect current wolf behavior research, which this is a thing too. Like people like finally did more research on it and like, no, it's actually not this way, like the way that it's sort of portrayed.
The whole alpha wolf leader of the pack thing, it's not a thing. It's not a thing. It's the dynamics of a wolf pack in captivity are vastly different to the dynamics of a wolf pack in the wild. So
it can involve like werewolves, which again kind of like lends itself to supernatural and that whole aspect. But then there's nodding, other animalistic elements, or the characters may be otherwise purely human. And I think that's the beta aspect of it. Alpha/beta/omega, it says, is often abbreviated in lowercase. This is something that we found out from Dandelion Dreaming, I think, a while back when we had talked about this, is that many fans have advised others not to write the abbreviated version of the term without slashes because in Australia, it is a racial slur referring to Aboriginal people, though the term without slashes is still in use as of 2023. Some Aboriginal fans have said that the abbreviation is offensive even with the slashes included. So I think maybe we should just call it Omegaverse.
I think that's
for the sake of this conversation. Do you want to talk about like the basic elements, like what an alpha, beta, omega is? We should also preface this too. This is a very fluid universe for people, depending on who's writing it. They start with the framework, but then they can kind of make up their own rules in their stories, which I mean, you do that anyway in fandom, but it seems very, I guess, obvious that there's like, here's what you start with and then go crazy. And this is what I like. This is what I don't like. This is how I want this to function situation.
Yeah, it's literally like a shorthand for world building because you can take any little elements and you can do what you want with them. So I'll go through the roles, as it were. So alphas are again. Okay, alphas are, I'm trying to think I'd be gender neutral about this. The impregnators. Let's go with that.
Okay.
Alphas are the impregnators.
Okay.
So alphas, dependent on what kind of, like what universe you're playing in, alphas can't bear children. Traditionally, alphas are male. I think I'm just going to read from the fan lore because there's too many. I'm just going to read from the fucking fan lore. This is from the fan lore page. I'm just going to read. Okay. Alphas are the highest rank in the dominance hierarchy. But again, you can subvert that trope and have omegas be higher and alphas be the lowest. You know, I've seen that. I've read that. It's cool. In some stories, they may exhibit dominant behavior. See, I do the fucking air quotes and everything. Dominant behavior or have other temperamental quirks. They are able to impregnate omegas. Male alphas usually have a knot when aroused. For those of you who have not looked this up, and for those of you probably like Sandra who don't want to look this up, that is a thing for that canids have. Male canids, so like dogs, wolves, things like that, have a
like a plug.
It's like a bulge at the base of the penis, so the closest part of the penis to the body. And yeah, effectively what happens is during mating, it swells up. The male canid will ejaculate, and it swells up and locks the male and female together. Some of this is in keeping the sperm in place. Population, so maybe something to do with inducing ovulation in a female, but that also might be something I've read in this trope. Maybe, but yeah, no, that is a real animal biology fact. Dogs have knots in their dicks. That is an actual thing. So alphas usually have a knot when aroused. In some works, female alphas are also able to impregnate others. Some will temporarily grow a penis to do so, or their vulva will permanently grow into one when they present. So, like, female alphas, I find really interesting. There's very little about them. Because that's a whole fucking, but like, what do you do? How do you impregnate someone without a cock? You know, do you give them a cock? Do they fucking magic? What happens? You know? I'm interested in it. Betas, these are the ones that tend to get left out. Like, you can have a world with betas in. You can say, oh, like, betas are just humans. Like, basic. It depends on what kind of society you're making in your world. Some people will have betas and say they're basically just normal humans. Some people won't have bases and just be like, there's alphas, omegas, and humans. You know, it depends what kind of world. But betas are subordinate to alphas in the dominance hierarchy. And again, this dominance hierarchy, you can play with it or you can not play with it. Like, it's guys, it's so fluid. You can do what you fucking want.
Yeah.
Just be like, I'll have this and this and this. All right.
Yeah. It's like a buffet. Pick what you like.
Yeah,
and
just
then put
take
it
a
in
little,
there.
take a little bit of everything. Betas are often presented as having normal human anatomy with none of the special attributes of alphas or omegas. They may be the peacemakers between alphas and omegas. Dependent on the story, they may be able to impregnate omegas. In some fan works, betas aren't present, and the trope is known as alpha/omega. In others, they take the role and functions of omegas, and omegas aren't present. It's a whole, it's fucking vast, y'all. A lot of the trope I see, a lot of things around this trope are to do with scents and scent kink and pheromones and things like that. And a pretty standard thing to see is that betas don't have the same sense of smell as an alpha or an omega. So again, depending on what the author is playing with, you'll have alphas or omegas trying to pass as betas using pheromone blockers and things like that. It's a whole, but yeah, like betas tend to be just like they either are or they are the substitute for just a baseline human. There's nothing special about them. They're just muggles, y'all. Oh,
yeah, that's what I was thinking. Yeah, no, but I was thinking that.
Yeah, no, keep it in. I'm commandeering your words. And then we have omegas. Omegas are the lowest rank in the dominance hierarchy. Again, it's very common to see that switched on its head and omegas be like really revered and things like that. They can get pregnant and go into heat. Most male omegas are self-lubricating and have the ability to become pregnant. Nobody has ever explained where that comes from. I've never read a fic that explains that.
I was reading. I was like, what? Huh? Okay.
Somebody hit me up.
Where's this come from?
Maybe we don't want to know.
Yeah.
They have the ability to become pregnant, sometimes referred to as being bred or mated. Omegas are often portrayed as the most fragile of the hierarchy, with frailer bodies and painful presentations. Some fan works may present male omegas as especially subject to fertility issues, miscarriages, and different pregnancies. Do you want me to carry on reading because now it's talking about bonds and things like that?
I think just figuring out like the basic parts of this hierarchy.
To really condense it down to its basics, omegas can get pregnant. Omegas go into heat, again, pretty traditional of canine reproductive cycles. You tend to see alphas going into rut as a counterpart to that, which is not in the canine reproductive cycle. Male dogs are down to fuck all the time. Even if there are no fuckable things in the vicinity, the dog will find something to fuck. But I think everyone's pretty, like deer go into rut. Like a lot of mammals go into that kind of like, it tends to be one or the other. Either females go into heat or the males go into rut, but whatever. So omegas go into heat, alphas go into rut. Omegas carry children, alphas make children. Alphas tend to be kind of masculine and omegas tend to be more feminine. Even though you can have male omegas and female alphas, that does tend to be the dynamic.
Stereotypical traits that people tend to put on. Yeah.
But again, I think that probably comes from kind of the like animal biology that it's been taken from. Females go into heat and they can carry that's also really common to call babies pups. That's really common as well. If you're playing around or if you're looking at ABO, it's very rare to see it referred to as just a child or a baby. And also litters and more babies tends to be quite common as well. A litter of pups.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so like I said, you can't really quantify it. It's a huge, huge universe to play with. But I would say that's the traditional Alpha, Omegaverse kind of thing. You know, Alpha's a male, Alpha's a masculine, Omega's a feminine. Omegas carry babies, Alphas knock people up. Betas are the in-betweeny bit.
Yeah. I think it's really interesting to know that Supernatural was responsible for this, like, to just come into existence. And I think it's like May 2010 is documented again, like in the fan lore page. You could probably like look it up and actually find like what the fic was, I would think, that related to it.
It is I Ain't No Lady, But You'd Be the Tramp by Ted Dirtiest Sock, also known as That Other Perv.
What I find, and so I'll come at this from like me trying to figure out, not knowing about, and this goes back to me not even knowing about Supernatural, but when I started trying to publish my original romance stuff, I was noticing a lot of shape-shifting romances. So like you could have, I mean, people they were turning into everything. They were werewolves, there were bears, there were like just anything imaginable. They had like romances, you know, around these sort of characters. Yeah, everything. If you could think it, somebody's probably written about it.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Paranormal shape-shifting romance was, I think it probably still is a pretty big thing, but it was kind of like the next evolution of vampires, wasn't it? They were
my thing is like, did that happen? That happened after this. That happened after this became a thing, because I really don't think you could go back. Like I always thought vampires were big for a very long time. And I think when you get into the whole, like the Twilight, I think when Twilight came into existence in the fandom and people started writing, I think there was vampires, werewolves, that kind of thing. So I wonder if that, in combination with maybe fanfic writers from Supernatural, because I swear I read this is way back when I was trying to get research on like what other people were writing. And it felt like this, where it was two buddies. They weren't brothers, but they lived together and they were very, very like in tune with each other. And they found you could say an Omega to mate with, to share. And very hot scenes, but but I was like looking back at it now.
That's pretty big. What Twilight could have been. I don't know. Have you read Twilight?
I've read Twilight. Yeah.
To my eternal shame, I have also.
But that
was a big thing of like the third book of Twilight, wasn't it? That Jacob was the werewolf and Edward was the vampire, and Bella was going, oh.
But these were buddy people. Like they were buddies. They lived together. They they ran a farm together. I distinctly remember one had green eyes. Just saying.
That's cute.
Yeah. But it did. When thinking about it now, I'm like, was there? I get it. It could have been Twilight. It could have been a whole bunch of things. But I also feel it's very interesting how that kind of, I think, started from, however its origins. The actual first, fanfic was from Supernatural. So I don't know if, and I think we've talked about a little bit of like the related tags. We've talked about Mpreg going into heat, nodding. I don't know if I think we want to go into the AO3 stats and notes.
Yeah,
section.
Let's, what else have we got? Omegaverse contains elements of tropes that appeared in many earlier fan stories. Perhaps the combination of these elements makes Omegaverse unique. Among these elements are, Mpreg going into heat, a hierarchical. I'm still not sure if that's right.
I don't know. I just say hierarchical, and I know that's not right, but
hierarchical. No, there's an I in that. Hierarchical. But
hierarchical. I like hierarchical.
That's the one. Hierarchical. Yeah. Let's be done with extraneous eyes. Biology-based class/caste system and knotting. Also, I don't know if this developed from Omegaverse, but I have to assume it did. I'm a really big fan of people that have taken that kind of biology-based system and taken it to Dom Sub. I fucking love those. I love those fics that are like you're designated either a dom or a... Should we actually, before we move on to like the AO3 stats, I apologize for the camera shaking, adjusting my feet. Oh no, I closed the thing. Fuck.
What'd you close?
The document that we were working on. Whoopsie daisy. Hang on 1 second. That's okay. I can get it back, y'all. Get it back. Yeah. So the fan law, and we will put a link because the first Omegaverse fic is still on AO3. It's on LiveJournal as well. We'll put a link to the description in it. But the very first kink meme is on the fan law page, which will also be down in the description. And the prompt is thus: AU. Their world is just like ours, except in their world there are two types of men. One is the alpha male, the other is the bitch male. It was 2010. We can get that slide.
Okay.
Alpha males are like any ordinary guy with the exception of their cocks. They work just like dog cocks. They're not the tons of cum. I have not verified if that is a thing with dogs. I'm not going to verify it. If you own a male dog, let me know. But I'm not going to Google it. All right? Yeah, the fic that came from that, again, Ted Dirty's Sock, or was that other pervert, something like that, is I Ain't No Lady, But You'd Be the Tramp, aka Trampverse, in July and August of 2010.
Does it, yeah, I'm curious as like the hits and the kudos and
it's pretty popular.
Like yeah.
Hits on that one, almost 27k, 579 kudos, 156 bookmarks. It's unfinished, though, annoyingly.
Maybe that's why it's not as, because I thought it would have been higher in terms of hits at this point, because you're talking 2010. So
it was, I think it was originally published on LiveJournal and then moved over to AO3.
And then moved over. Okay. Gotcha.
So,
okay. Yeah. So we're going to break down some of the stats and stuff. So number of fics with alpha/beta/omega or Omegaverse. Again, the tag itself is alpha/beta/omega dynamics. So if you type in Omegaverse, it kind of like just automatically goes over into that situation. Across all fandoms is 214,075 fics. In SPN fandom, I found 9,456. So that would have been
much higher.
So for a fandom that originated it, it sounds like a lot of other fandoms have just run with it from there. So I think I saw everything like Marvel, I would assume Twilight. I mean, that just seems like a no-brainer situation. So anything else that might
Walking Dead.
Yeah.
The Walking Dead is, yeah. I know it's prevalent in that. It lends itself. It's like, it lends itself so well as well. You can put that in. You can put those kind of, you can put it in anything. It lends itself very well. I mean, for example, if someone wanted to take The Boys, I think it's pretty popular in the boys fandom as well. But if somebody wanted to cross
like
them over,
somebody like, calling it like, I don't know, Not For Sale or something like that, where, Soldier Boys, the unwilling Omega. Yeah, you should look that up. You should look that up under Save as my safe word. You might find it. there. I find Dean/Soldier Boy. Very good. Yeah. Very, very good.
Soldier Boy being the Omega, because I am nothing if not predictable in my wood, which just burns a little.
So then in the fandom, and I'll probably include this document too, because there's like links and stuff to the breakdown.
Yeah, we got like two documents to share with you this week.
So
guys,
for the Supernatural, just the Supernatural like TV show component, there's 8,230. And then the Supernatural RPF, it's 1,226. Again, for the one that started it, which was the RPF, it kind of got superseded, I think, by just the Supernatural part.
That doesn't surprise me because RPF is niche. It's not niche within. Well, it still kind of is, because a lot of people do have that kind of squick about real characters and stuff like that. So that doesn't surprise me. But the whole, like, overall, it only being 9,000, that surprises me.
Yeah.
I expected it to be much higher than that.
I did too, when I was like I said, I know I've seen a lot of it and I see a lot of people writing it. So I would just assume it would be more. So I don't know, I can start, we can do this. I can do the Supernatural. You can do the Supernatural RPF when we break it down. Okay. So we like to do like different like ratings, warnings, categories, and just, read those out.
Give you the data, the numbers. You might number people.
You might want it. So we've got it. So for ratings under the Supernatural tag, we've got explicit 4,500, mature 1,527, teen and up audiences 922, not rated 719, general audiences 562. Again, I'm just always interested. What's the teen and the general like? Are they just talking about like just like the getting together? Like, there's a lot of that. Like
there's a lot of universe that doesn't revolve around sex because I like a lot of stuff you see is like societal and how it treats omegas and things like that. And
it's like coming from a different like class system. I mean, I could see it's very like West Side Story or like something like that, or like, you know, our worlds are not supposed to, like, even though it's built on the fact that an alpha needs an omega, but like, yeah, you get the classism, I think. Yeah. So that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a whole heap of shit to play with. I'm just tediously predictable. And I'm like, give me the dicks though. That's what I want to play with. So for Supernatural RPF, the ratings are explicit 764, mature 243, teen and up 125, not rated 67, and general audiences 27. Can I just say, I know they're in alphabetical order, but the fact that not rated comes before general really fucking upsets me because it's like I want it to be in
it makes
like
more
age
sense.
order.
Yeah, yeah. If it was like flipped, right? So you'd want the general audience and then not rated. Yeah,
yeah. And I realized that it's, but then the warnings aren't in alphabetical order. Could you fucking pick one?
Yeah, that is true. Yeah, I had nothing to do with that, with putting them in order. So that's the way O3 is set up. So warnings for Supernatural like TV show. No archive warnings apply. 4,154. Creator chose not to use archive warnings. 2,650. Graphic depictions of violence. I'd kind of expect this, maybe. 868. Rape/non-con 849, underage 646, major character death 203. It's kind of on the rougher, just in general, this universe, it's visceral, I think. So I think that's why a lot of those things are being checked off. Yeah.
And it leans into those animalistic dynamics of fighting for a mate, and also those kind of omegas submitting is a real big thing as well. So you'll have like, you know, sometimes that process can be quite violent even if it's consensual, and sometimes you'll have like unmated omegas be like harassed by unmated alphas and things like that as well. And then also like the whole other thing that we haven't talked about is like the whole werewolf or were creature, because there's like werecats and, you know, like that whole kind of, we're
like
looking
skinwalkers situation.
Yeah, we've been kind of looking at the like human bit, but there's a whole other kind of like section of this verse that really leans into like shapeshifters, werewolves, werecats, that kind of thing. And obviously that inherently comes like animal mating and things like that. It's very rarely nice. Moving on. Yeah. So for RPF, it's no archive warnings apply, 549. Creator chose not to use archive warnings, 447. Underage, 150. Rape/non-con, 142. Graphic depictions of violence, 106. Major character deaths, 17. So that's interesting. That's interesting. Also, again, Omega's presenting quite young, can be a trope. It tends to be in the teens around the time puberty would hit. So depending on how you personally feel about underage fics, that can, you know, if you prefer everyone be over the age of 18, that can also be a thing as well.
That's one of the things. Yeah, I've seen that. I've seen a lot of them say they present at a specific age. So I think to get over it, to get out of the underage part, they're probably saying like 18 or whatever like that. Yeah.
But there's I've seen it pretty commonly between sort of like 13 and 16, kind of the same age that human puberty would kick in. But I've seen it as young as 12. I've seen it up to like, you know, mid-20s. It's a real
one of the ones we're going to talk about, I think. Is
that's
older. Yeah, right?
Yeah, but that's wrong.
I know.
That's the whole thing.
I know.
We'll get into it.
I know. So categories for Supernatural TV: male 6,859, female 1,671, multi 748, female/female 373, gen 277, other 171. Lots of male. Lots of male.
Yeah. Well, it really lends itself to that when you provide your males with a self-lubricating feature
system. Yep. Absolutely.
It do lend itself to that. And I do I know that the original thing didn't start this way, but I do. It's real fucking easy as a writer to just go, wow, it's Omegaverse, because then you just don't have to deal with like prep or lube or anything. Like, it's a built-in system, motherfucker. It's great.
Mm-hmm.
Not saying that I've done that, but I can see the appeal. I actually haven't. So RPF, it is male 1090, female 151, multi 93, female 36, gen 23, other 20.
Then we've got characters for the Supernatural TV show. Dean Winchester, 6,837. Castiel, Supernatural, 5,380. Sam Winchester, 4,695. Gabriel, Supernatural, 1,521. John Winchester, 1,355. Bobby Singer, Supernatural, 1,143. Charlie Bradbury, 1,099. Benny Lafitte, 1,005. Michael, Supernatural, 721. Lucifer, Supernatural, 710.
And I want to preface that in case anybody else is going, oh God, Bobby. That does not necessarily mean that is romantic. That is a thing you can do on AO3. You tag your pairings, but you can tag your additional characters as well.
And that is what. But I just don't even want him involved in it's just no.
Alrighty. So characters for RPF: Jensen Ackles, 992. Jared Padalecki, 946. Misha Collins, 234. Jeffrey D. Morgan, 191. Chad Michael Murray, 190. Christian Kane, 186. It's so fucking interesting. You would expect there to be some kind of overlap between the supernatural characters and the supernatural actors, but there isn't. Outside of the main few, they just go fucking wild and they're like, let's bring in some buddies, y'all. Christian Kane, 186. Danielle Harris, 102. Genevieve, I don't know how to pronounce that. Cortez? Yeah, mm-hmm. Cortez. 102. Original characters, 85. That's interesting. Original female characters, 77. Original characters don't get a fucking look in with Supernatural. That's really interesting that they're in with the RPFs. That's interesting. Yeah.
So now we get into the relationships for Supernatural TV. So Castiel / Dean Winchester, 4,811. Dean Winchester / Sam Winchester, 1,096. Gabriel / Sam Winchester, 662. Castiel and Dean Winchester. So this is a platonic with the end sign, 368. Jessica Moore / Sam Winchester, 334. Dean Winchester / Reader, 240. Sam Winchester / Reader, 212. Dean Winchester and Sam Winchester, 209. Dean Winchester / U, 207. Castiel / Sam Winchester, 205.
This is fun because Sandra gets
facial expressions. Sandwiched with Castiel at both the top and the bottom, and then a whole bunch of filling in between. That's what it says on AO3. No. That's what it says.
I know that's what it says.
Yeah.
No, that's fine. That's fine. I'm real fucking glad that Sabriel made it up there. 3. I love Sabriel.
Yeah, I mean, even I know you downplayed Jessica and Sam, but still, it's interesting to see that's, and again, that could be sort of like a side relationship too, that they're kind of putting in depending on stories.
That tends to be when you're talking about, because again, another thing that you can put in here is true mates, soulmates, bond pairs, things like that. So you tend to see Sam with Jess, but that's really Dean is his one true person. So and past as well. So for RPF, we have
surprised by this.
Jensen / Jared at 982. Jensen Ackles, Jeffrey D. Morgan, 44. That is a fucking jump, though. Jesus. Jensen Ackles, Misha Collins, 40. Dean Winchester, Sam Winchester, 26.
So they're doing some weird AU thing where they're popping in, I guess. And
you can put Dean and Sam under any what's it called? The fandom bit. The bit that you put in Supernatural. When you're doing you can put anything in there and then put Sam and Dean Winchester. Yeah, it doesn't have to be. But it's interesting.
It's just weird that an RPF, again, that just means that they really are going AU and probably finding a way to bring Dean and Sam into this. Yeah.
I mean, why wouldn't you? They're beautiful.
Why wouldn't you?
Dean Winchester, Sam Winchester, 26. Genevieve Cortez, Jared Padalecki, 26. Jensen Ackles, Danielle Harris, 24. Misha Collins, Jared Padalecki, 24. Jensen Ackles, others, 24. Jeffrey Dean Morgan, Jared Padalecki, 22. Jensen Ackles, Jeffrey Dean Morgan, Jared Padalecki, 20. So again, pretty interesting, pretty wild mix.
Yeah. And then the last one is additional tags for Supernatural TV, Alpha/Beta/Omega Dynamics, 6,667. Alpha Dean Winchester, 2,608. Omega Dean Winchester, 2,527. Nodding, 2,122. Alpha Castiel, 2,097. Omega Castiel, 1,700. Mpreg, 1,625. Alpha/Omega, 1,567. Mating Cycles / In Heat, 1,535. And then Alpha Sam Winchester, 1,425. Lot of Dean. A lot of Dean happening at the top.
Dean and Cass there. Yeah. And then 2 minutes ago I went, you see a lot of Omega Jensen, and then AOF's like, ha ha, you're a liar, dickhead. So for RPF additional tags.
It's not that bad, yeah.
There's like a fucking like a 200.
But still, it's in there.
It's in there
though. It's not like it's not showing up at all.
Yeah,
so
but like Alpha Dean Winchester and Omega Dean Winchester is like
closer,
500 apart.
No, it's not even 100. It's not even 100 apart in terms of it.
Oh god, yeah. No, it's not. It's like 70, maybe 70. It's like almost 200. But yeah, Alpha Beta Omega Dynamics 957, Notting 442. That's interesting. That didn't even. Oh no, it did. That was a lot lower than the other. Alpha Jensen Ackles 412. Remember that number. Alpha Jared Padalecki 312. That's odd. Mpreg 281. Omega Jensen Ackles 272. You see how I made a liar here? You see how I made a fucking liar? Omega Jared. He didn't get a last name for his.
He doesn't. He doesn't even get a last name. I just like, okay.
Just Jared. Yeah.
It could be any Jared. Hello, let's be specific.
No. The other problem is when you click on that, you get a whole bunch of Jared Leto shit that nobody cares about.
That's what I mean. Like, why don't you just, okay.
Or I don't know. Omega Jared, 554. Alpha/Omega.
254. You said
Omega
554.
Jared.
You really wanted it higher.
I'll look at that. Alpha/Omega 247. Mating Cycles / In Heat 165, and Alternate Universe 161. So again, I think it's so interesting how they like, I would expect to see a lot more similarities between the two than you actually do. That's interesting.
Yeah. So we talked about why we picked the traditional and like non-traditional. That's why we have 4 fics, because we wanted to do Het and Wincest pick for each of them. So I think initially there were 6. There were like 6 total. There were like 4 Wincest, 2 Het. And I just wanted to shout this out because this is actually someone who is very prevalent, I think, in the Omegaverse and has been doing this for a while. And both of the Het fics are by this author, and it's Kitten of Doomage. I went in and checked. And again, Kitten of Doomage is well known in the fandom. I mean, I remember getting started on Tumblr, finding her page, and she's the reason that I even knew what the heck A/B/O was, because the Omegaverse, she has a FAQ page on her site that was like, okay, this is what this is. Because I had no clue. I was like, what are they talking about? I think the page on her Tumblr is more about how her universe manages like Alpha, Beta, Omega. So again, we were talking about how people can really tailor it to how they want, and then also like, how bound are you in your own universe? That's a question I have, because like, what if you get interested? I know you've got the ability to write whatever, but if you've built this world and then you're like, but what if you could do this? Then you're adding to it and kind of like continuing to just get really in depth about it. But I found Kitten of Doomage back in 2020. When I looked into AO3, I counted over 140 fics that Kitten of Doomage wrote.
Omegaverse?
Yes, Omegaverse. Yes. And fun little fact, and Kitten of Doomage, I don't think listens, but if you do listen, Kitten of Doomage, congratulations, because I saw that she's written over 900 works on AO3. They're not all supernatural, but 900. And she did a little like posting screenshot of it, said, yes, I suppose I have written a few. And she just wanted to, save this date for me. But that is quite an accomplishment. 900 fics.
It's awesome.
We may be hitting you up, Kitten of Doomage. We may want to talk to you about all the stuff you've done.
Be up in your Tumblr DMs. Like, hello. We would like to, yes, please.
Yeah, but I think it says a lot that you found like two het fics, and they were by Kitten of Doomage. That says a lot about
the majority of het fics were by Kitten of Doomage. I was spoiled for choice, for real.
Yeah. So I don't know how you want to go about talking about these first. If we're going to wait for this. Are we talking about the subtropes now too?
We should probably talk about the subtropes now before we get into the actual fics. And we can talk because out of the two of us, I've written one. Because you were questioning like what do you do with your world once you've established it, and I was going to make a joke about writing a shitty YA novel like Divergent. You invent a character that subverts the tropes, and you go, oh no, look, I'm really attractive, but also nobody sees it until I'm sorry, I've been listening to I've been watching
I take off my glasses. Yeah.
Fucking, I've been watching a D&D group, and they've been ripping the piss out of YA novels, and like writing YA novels. And there's two different boys, and they're completely separate, and she doesn't know who she's in love with, and she's really clumsy, but also like super athletic and acrobatic and stuff. Yeah. All right, moving on. So Dreamer just wrote this handy dandy little dive into subtropes. And these are just kind of like the more common ones because, again, it's fucking huge. We'd be here for days trying to break down every bit of the Omegaverse without even getting into the subtropes within the trope. So these are just some of the more common ones. So hidden status, character tries to hide their status in some way. I touched on it before. Scent blockers, hormone replacements, suppressants. Usually heat suppressants for Omegas is very, very common. But suppressants for like pheromones and things like that. Also, usually to pass publicly due to societal and or legal prejudice against a particular status, commonly Omegas for being the weaker type. So yeah, we kind of touched on that before. And when you put this within the supernatural world, there's a pretty big trope around Omegas not being able to be hunters. So you tend to get whichever one of your pairing is the Omega trying very hard to pass. Usually it's a beta because that's easier, but yeah, one of my favorite ABOs, which actually is Jen, is actually not explicit. I didn't find it. I found it through an explicit timestamp, but that's fucking besides the point. That actually features well, I'll link it below, but Sam is an alpha and he gets changed to be an Omega to carry a Nephilim baby. And it's like background Destiel, but the main story is about the journey, and like their pack, so to speak, like going on this journey with Sam. And that's a big thing about Sam, like getting like scent blockers and things like that to keep trying to pass as an alpha and pass as a beta as he becomes more and more pregnant.
Okay. And
I found it through an incredibly hot Sabriel fic.
Okay.
That's adjacent. But it's I'll link it below. It's called The Fifth Trial. It's very, very good. What we're going to talk about actually within the fics that we've discussed is late presentation. Status is usually revealed as the second kind of puberty, and in this subtrope it's delayed for whatever reason. So like I said, sometimes you'll have that kind of presenting, which usually presents with Omegas going into their first heat. Alphas can go into their first rut, but it's sometimes just referred to as popping your knot, which invokes a lot of body horror that I don't really want to touch on. But like, yeah, I don't know. I guess just you wake up one day and your dick's changed. I don't know. But yeah, sometimes that will happen.
Just very I mean, that's a very puberty, scary moment
just wake up and you're like, oh
when your
god,
body just starts doing things that you weren't prepared for, and you're just like, what am I supposed to do with this? And if you're not given, it's a whole thing. Yes, absolutely.
But sometimes that happens at the same time as like normal human puberty, and sometimes you go through normal human puberty and you spend a few years kind of like
figuring out what's going to
pre-presentation.
happen. It's kind of like, it's like, how are you going to get sorted situation?
So you go through your human puberty and you spend a few years like, you tend to be sexually immature, so your human puberty doesn't make you sexually mature in the way that it would if you were a human. And then you go through like you go through your presentation, and you go to heat or you go to raw or whatever. Status dysphoria, and then it says question mark. Transgender parallels. Character feels they don't fit their assigned status either physically or emotionally. Example, an alpha character may not have the aggressive nature typical of the status, no interest in dominating sexually, etc. An omega character may not have any desire for family, not be meek or subservient. Now, again, this is really prevalent because, I mean, whichever way you want to spin it, Sam and Dean are big fucking guys. If you're going to make one of them an omega, you either have to change their body, or you have to address the 6 foot odd Texan in the fucking room and go, oh, Jensen wasn't a typical omega. But I've also seen it really common to have an alpha Sam who is not very domineering, who is not aggressive and things like that. And some of the best stories that I've read come from that kind of coming together of an omega, whichever one it is, that isn't like meek and subservient and is kind of Billy Badass, meeting an alpha who isn't chauvinistic and dominating, and it's so fucking cute. I like that. I like that. But I think
that's actually the first one leans into that, I think, for traditional that we've got. When you were explaining that's the feeling I got reading about the characters, at least Dean in particular.
But then also, like Dreamer said, with the transgender parallels, you can have a lot of, it's almost like, I assume most people are familiar with the concept of gender disappointment in a pregnancy, of finding out, what genitals your baby has been given, and then being like, no, I'm sad, I wanted the other one. Which is, 10 years ago, I would have gone, that's fucking dumb. But while I didn't experience it with my second child, I did spend a few days going, oh, I was fucking convinced he was a girl. What? So I'm like, I get it. It's fine to feel a certain way. You just can't put that on the kid, But that's a whole different thing. Yeah. But that kind of expecting to present as one thing and then presenting as the other and really being fucked up by that's also quite common, and that really does kind of invoke that trans in the wrong body, in the wrong, just that inherent feeling of wrongness and
how you just don't fit in to what's expected.
I don't tend to read those fics. I wonder why. But I never really see that, fixed in the way that we attempt to fix gender dysphoria in the real world with hormones or surgery. It tends to just be like, oh, you'll just adjust. Yep, you'll just figure it out. I don't. If you have anywhere it's addressed and fixed, quote unquote, hit me up because I'd read that. I don't want to read somebody being real fucked up about being a presentation and then just being like, oh, well, good. I finally fucked the right person. Guess it's all good now. I don't like that.
Oh, the magic dick.
If we could fix trans issues like that, that would be fucking sweet. But that's not,
Yeah.
And then, of course, we have the non-traditional dynamics, which, again, if Omegaverse is an umbrella, traditional and non-traditional are the first sub-umbrellas. And oh my god, it's fucking huge, y'all. It's huge. But things like traditionally Omegas are the lowest ranked. Omegas being the highest ranked could be considered non-traditional. Omega relationships, alpha relationships can be considered untraditional. There's a whole heap of shit that you can it all depends on what kind of world you're building as to how because you don't have to take that first prompt as, stone one and say anything that deviates from that is non-traditional. It depends how you view the world that you're making, I think.
Yeah. Because I can see it going where if you're talking about a het fic, where then all of a sudden, if you do alpha alpha, like a thing where Dean and Sam, their bond supersedes everything else, and kind of like, they've got that thing going on. So I mean, I could even, I don't even know if those fics exist. I mean, they might, but I would think they'd be very even more niche, because you're throwing a lot of different things into a blender. And I could see that maybe, because they, like you said, they do seem very niche, like in terms of what people are looking for, even within Omegaverse, depending on the tags and things that are in there. Yeah, no, it's very interesting. There's a lot.
It's like even something like, if you say omegas are the one that go into heat, and that's traditional, having your omegas not go into heat and your alphas go into rut instead, that can be non-traditional. It's very, very subjective. But when we were looking for fics, we literally just searched the tags. We literally searched for like alpha, beta, omega, and non-traditional alpha, beta, omega dynamics. And that was how we just went by what the author categorized it as. Because again, what's traditional and non-traditional to me could be very different to Sandra, could be very different to you, very different to the next person. I'm trying to remember. I don't think I tagged my ABO as non-traditional, but I glossed over like a whole heap of law and world building. I was just like, hi, they fuck. What do you want from me?
Well,
I didn't really touch on anything like world.
Well, are you thinking it was more non-traditional just because of the characters that would be considered the omega? No. Okay, all right.
No,
okay.
I wouldn't consider like who the omega and who the alpha is to make something non-traditional. I actually just tagged mine AU and then alpha, beta, omega dynamics. I didn't, because it was like mine was traditional. It was an omega needed knotting to get through the heat, and that was
I think the only way.
Sandra's grinning so hard. She loves that fic.
It was really good, because I think what I liked was because the expectation of the two characters going in, you might have thought something else based on the characters that end up mating. So I think, like, just again, it subverted it a little bit in a really great way.
That's more of a
character traits. Character traits and stuff like that. Like, just
and
expected.
I mean, I wrote that because I wrote it for the Jackals versus Bingo, which does not allow Wincest or Deciel. But I think that was one of the things that drew me to that, is because gun to my head, I could not say who is a top and who is a bottom consistently between Sam and Dean. I think it's very much depends on the scenario, the setting, the universe, what you're doing with them. But having Soldier Boy and being able to go, but though, that's really interesting to me. I love playing with those. What if it just bends a little? Alrighty. So do you want to talk about the het ones?
Yeah, I mean,
and I will talk about the Wincest ones. Or we'll just discuss.
I figure I
want to get into the nitty gritty of what it is that doesn't vibe with Sandra about these things. But we'll cover the fics that we've discussed, that we chose, whatever. I was supposed to just pick 4 to send over to Sandra, and then I couldn't choose between the Wincest ones. And I was
initially it was just going to be one of each. You were going to do traditional, not traditional. Then, like you said, you guys realized, oh no, we should probably do some het, and like incorporate that in there too for discussion, because I like me het. I like me some het stuff. So it's interesting to, again, see the origins of it, and then how people pull stuff out and create their own. And like we were saying, I think Kitten of Doomage is a good example of that, and how she kind of ran with the trope, and kind of like just made it her own thing within the het sphere, if you want to call it that. The first one that's traditional, A/B/O, is drawn by Kitten of Doomage, and it's, of course, rating is explicit. Tags, it is Dean Winchester /reader, and there's Dean Winchester reader, Sam Winchester, and there's a bunch of different tags in there. Some of the ones are nodding, Omega reader, Alpha Dean, mentions of past abuse, depression, anxiety, dubcon, fluff, and angst. And the summary is the reader is an Omega, but after an incident ended up with her family hurt, she put herself into self-imposed isolation. She never expects that she'd find her Alpha in a supermarket whilst he's buying medicine for his flu-ridden brother. And it also says,
Sammy.
Yeah, poor Sammy and the flu. So I think it's actually based in like Sioux Falls, because I think Jody's in this as well as the sheriff, I think, in this one. So you were talking earlier about how like some of the alphas kind of they're not as, I don't know if rough's the right word. They're not as like into Alpha Dean Winchester, I think, has a little more self-control in this up to a point, or a self-imposed self-control. So he meets Reader completely coincidentally, and actually it's just by scent. And I think the whole premise of it is she's gone into town to get her medicine, which is supposed to help suppress the scent or something like that.
Oh, yeah.
So, but I think her heat has come earlier than expected, so she had to rush out and get her medicine. And what ends up happening is Dean scents her in the aisle, and because of the past abuse she's dealt with, I believe it's an Alpha, was trying to claim her in this situation, and the dad got into trouble for basically trying to protect the daughter. All that, he got shot.
The Alpha. He tried to like intervene and stop and the guy shot him.
So then she's got all this guilt. Oh, it's my fault. Oh, I need to just, I can't have anything to do with my family. I'm just going to bring a lot of grief and issue and all of that. So I'm just going to like hide away in like this little cabin situation and just not be bothered. But she has conversations with her family. You could tell that she misses them, but she's made this decision. But I think the parents are more like, you can come back. We can figure this out. And she's just not ready to do that. And I think there's also the issue of she just has this PTSD of how she was attacked basically by the Alpha and doesn't want that in any way, shape, or form again. So,
yeah, she's very, very isolated herself and very, like lives in the woods and cameras, and she's very much removed herself from society at large, for better or worse, I guess.
So one of the lines that Kitten writes is, being an Omega was a curse, a genetic failure. So that's kind of like, falls into line with how someone just feels less than because of how they've been classed or sorted by society, and like says things like stupid Omega like to herself in the thing. And I think what happens is so your period coming meant it was only 2 weeks until you came into heat. Better to be prepared for that and get your prescription so you could take it in time. Well, that doesn't end up happening because Dean again is in the pharmacy going to get the Sasquatch. The overgrown Sasquatch could deal with knife wounds, bullet holes, and monster hickeys, but give him the sniffles and a fever, and he was down like a dead lumberjack. I like that line. That was very, very cute. But what ends up happening is I think they both clock each other. So the reader clocks Dean, Dean clocks the reader, but the reader just bolts.
Leaves.
Just because there's an Alpha and she knows the Alpha has spotted him. But Dean doesn't. He definitely reacts to her scent. He inhaled, scenting freshly baked pie, cinnamon, black coffee, and something that reminded him of the smell of fresh cut grass as he drove baby down the highway. This is what I like about the scent part of it, is that it's very specific depending on
that's quite tropey as well, to have Omega smell like sweet things or baked goods, sugar, things like that. And you have Alphas that smell it's very real world. Women get to smell like things that exist. Men get to smell like adjectives. So Alphas tend like those more traditional, like pine, like cedar wood, those kind of more aggressive masculine scents. Ask me about the fucking fic I'm currently writing regarding scents and how over that shit I am. But that, and also another kind of trope that you see is emotions being scented and being able to tell somebody's emotions based on like how their scent changes and things like that. And I'm like, I'm really into it. You see a lot of Omega's scent getting sweeter when they're pregnant as well, or when they come into heat and things like that. But yeah, like Omega's smelling like, like a bakery and things like that that's pretty common.
I've also
I don't know
noticed,
if I'd want someone who smells like pie. I don't know.
I've also noticed that I think people just like to hear them growl because there's a lot of growling. There's a lot of growling in these. But actually
Omega's purring and chirping as well.
The reader said that when she sensed Dean, it had come off of him in waves, and you'd scented melted chocolate, gunpowder, whiskey, and spring rain. The smell so overwhelming that you'd almost cried out. When he'd sensed you and growled, you jumped, memories flooding your instincts with fear. So I like dirty talk. I like hearing, you've got to like the voice. I think that's a part of it too. And there's just something, Dean is more, as he's gotten older, he's gotten gruffer and deeper, and he growls, like her, you feel like he's going to just,
The alpha voice is pretty common as well. The alphas have this special voice or special quality that they can imbue their voice with that commands obedience. It could be used for good.
Is that like the Dom? Is that like where you kind of get a little bit of the Dom?
I think it's more like supernaturally, like you cannot. It works on Omegas, and they cannot defy the voice.
It kind of like just like something just snaps in their brain that just like boop.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Or they can, and it's very difficult, and it can be considered rude to use that voice. Changing eyes is I should have made a list before we started this. Changing eye color is very common. Alpha's getting red eyes. Omega's getting gold eyes.
Okay.
Things like that. All very, very common.
Sounds like a lot. Sounds like a lot to pop up in here and there. So I think when we get into it more, like, again, Dean realizes that he's scared. The Omega, and this is where
he just feels awful, guys.
He feels bad about it.
He feels so awful.
And he just wants to
go
find
to Jodie, and he finds out who she is and where she lives, and that she lives alone.
He thinks this is
what kind of car she drives, and he just feels so awful. You guys
just goes around the house a couple times, but and she doesn't. She sees the car and stuff like that on a couple of occasions. He's kind of like making excuses to Sam, even though Sam's feeling better about why he should stay around for a while. Like there's another case.
And Sam clocks him immediately. By the way, Sam's like, "Oh, it's got nothing to do with the Omega you ran into in the supermarket." And he's like, "No, shut up."
But Sam actually kind of like intervenes and goes to the Omega's house. I think just kind of like explains the situation to her. I've got parts of the conversation highlighted. Dean's never reacted that way to an Omega before. They don't really register for him. You blinked taking in that piece of information. Alphas always reacted to Omegas, didn't they? And Sam's like, I don't know. I mean, most alphas settle down before they turn 30. Dean's never even looked at an Omega. I guess our life is difficult. So it becomes this sort of like, I guess he's restricting himself from his own physical wants and needs because of the life. And, possibly too, because of his relationship with Sam and, what they're doing together to, saving people, hunting things, all that stuff. So it's him denying himself, I think, in the end.
Denying your biology, not being a slave to it. That's also very kind of common, and, not being a knothead or a knot slut, depending. But yeah, that kind of like overcoming that animalistic nature is again a very common.
So I think that the main crux of the fic is that they're both denying themselves things for different reasons. Her because of her past trauma, him because of what he's thinking he has to do instead of what's happening. And he goes back to see her, and it's I think one of these situations where they just can't deny what's going on, and she gives in and then kind of gives him permission to sort of give in.
I can't remember. I think the Dubcon tag is because she's in heat at the time, and we should talk about that at the beginning as well. There is, to my mind, this is how I consider it. There is always an inherent dubcon with ABO, with Omegaverse, just by nature of the fact that so many of the situations come as a result of one party being either in heat or in rut, and as such, lacking informed consent. Now, if you remember, we did a whole episode on consent and mind-altering substances, being drunk, being under the influence, things like that. It comes under that because it's while it's not an outside substance, it's internal. You know, it's this biological need to mate, to reproduce, to the exclusion of all else. It comes inherently with its own consent issues. So it's you know, again, heed the tags, y'all. Yeah. But I always consider it to be at the very least dubcon. I think I made it very clear in mine that mine was very heavily dubcon. There was consent, but again, it was skewed by nature of the situation that the characters were in. So but she consents. You know, she opens the door, she lets him in. She's like, yeah, let's screw. But it comes with an asterisk, you know? Yeah.
I think the one thing I did like is that they come to the realization about the smell is that it's like every smell they ever loved. And I think she says, you smell like home to me in a way that home never smelled. And that's like, cute. And now let's just bang. Just bang it every way possible. It's very good.
Like, it's good. It's good banging.
It's very good. It's
very
good
banging.
They are taking advantage. Consequences be damned. They're just gonna go for it. And he gives, he gives in, to that. And there's a lot of dirty. Again, there's dirty talk, because it's in there. And she's like, just shut up and not me. And it's like, go to town. Let's go to town.
Yeah,
spunky little Omega.
Yeah, that's also another thing. Like the whole presenting Omega, kind of an Omega that is presenting is that very sort of stereotypical. I don't know, because it tends to be like face down, ass up, and dogs don't fuck like that. But cats don't fuck like that either. So I don't know where that came from. But it's very much like, on your hands and knees, like ass in the air, basically, is a presenting pose. So I guess kind of a modified, doggy style position. But dogs don't actually fuck like that. Girl dogs don't get down on the little doggy forearms. Oh, that's how I made myself so grossly uncomfortable. I made myself so upset with that. No,
but I do like that. He's willing, like at the end, like he's willing to open himself up to her and talk about, like, because basically he's got to give her the whole backstory, about everything, because they're actually, I think, going to try to make this a thing. They're going to try to see how they can make this work, because they realize they are each other's, mate and all of that stuff. So I think it finds a way to have a romantic bent to it, which I do like in this story.
It's very nice.
It is nice towards the end. So they you get all the components of it, and it brings it to fruition. We should probably talk about the others, or we will be here till 1:00 before we have something else going on.
We got shit going on this afternoon, guys. We gotta behave ourselves.
So then the next one, Kasey.
That's me. So the next one is The Claiming by Wayward L, which it's part one of the brother mate verse. So this is the Wincest one. And this takes place, this is an canon divergence from my most favoritist episode of season 11, Baby. So instead of Dean, hopping in the front seat and being like, oh, I'm sorry, I'm just going to not be here, he hops in the front seat and realizes that something is very, very wrong with his brother, and he's kind of mean to Piper and tells her to fucking, like, stop touching him, get out. And what has happened is, in this particular universe, Omega's Alphas, you present around 16, but Sam didn't, and that was weird. Sam didn't present at 16. Why was that? Everyone chalks it up to stress. Stress impacts that. They were under a lot of stress when Sam was 16, blah, blah, blah. But now Sam's 32. So it's a 16-year cycle. And, oh, whoops, what has happened? He was having a nice old time with Piper, and then, oh, fuck. This is not, shit. No, that's not supposed to happen. But Dean has been like, he's been convinced that Sammy is his mate their whole life, even when Sam didn't present. But he couldn't, like, that was just weird and incesty, and that, that wasn't going to happen. So he gets in the car. Sam is full Omega in heat. And Dean's kind of like, sees Piper off and blah, 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 blah. Yeah, Sam hadn't presented as an Omega. He hadn't presented as anything. It had been a tender spot between them ever since. Sam wasn't happy about it either. He had told Dean once, with a couple of fingers of whiskey in him, that Dean was the only place he felt like he belonged, and even that didn't work out the way it should have. My Sammy baby. My poor baby. So yeah, Sam also thought they should be mates, but he didn't present, and they figured it just didn't work out that way. But then Sam does present in the in the backseat of the car. So kind of the thing about this one is that Sam has to accept Dean as his alpha, as his mate, for any of it to work. And so as much as Dean wants to, fuck and claim and blah, 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 without Sam sort of submitting to that and, accepting that it won't take. So Dean's trying real hard to, like, keep a handle on things. He doesn't want to, like, try and force anything on Sam. So he just takes Sam off to a motel.
I love how protective he is in this, which is just Dean's, like, especially like when the other alpha comes around, like you see all of the Dean traits just amplified when it comes to Sam,
Yeah. It's this is this sort of talks about Piper, and Dean's kind of like mad about Piper, like touching Sam and stuff, but it also touches on Becky and how bad that could have gone if Becky had actually sort of touched Sam and done anything that he would have. What does it say? She's real lucky Sam's the forgiving type because he almost tore a limb from limb for drugging him and forcing him into marriage.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but this is one that has the eye color change. Alpha's eyes change red, and I think it might like maybe a vision change as well, like a red mist over the vision. Sam's eyes is the Omega going gold. And so, yeah, they're just driving to a motel, and Dean's kind of just trying to be like, look, it's fine, we'll sort it out, don't even worry about it, because he can't tell Sam what's happened. Not because of anything to do with the bond or anything, but he just knows that Sam will want to figure this out on his own.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. And then Dean goes to get them a motel room. There's an incident with an alpha outside of the car that Dean, really kind of scares off, and Sam's like, oh no, wait, I get it now. Whoa, fuck, damn it. Yeah. And then they go, that's what kind of twigs Sam onto what's happening. And they go inside and they make sweet, sweet love for the rest of all of eternity. And it's
all of eternity.
all of eternity is real sweet. And this universe has like sort of mates and things like that, and there's normal humans, and alphas and omegas are in the minority, but they have to pair up. An alpha has to have an omega to be like fulfilled, like it's like a biological need, kind of like a soulmate. It's kind of like the other part of you, like, kind of like that paranormal romance mates kind of thing that you see.
And
it's and they fuck, and it's there's a lot of fucking. I'm scrolling. They're still fucking. Still. There's a lot of fucking, you guys. It's fucking great.
There's a lot of pumping of liquids and fluids.
Yeah, because that's also with them being male. You kind of, I think it kind of gets hand waved in
There's
hat.
the biting too, right? Like they bite to sort of like that. Like is that like the final like I've
cements
claimed
the bond, and it's like a sometimes you see like mating glands, mating bites, claiming bites, and a little scar, and like that's a sign of a mated omega is to have that bite on the neck. Sometimes alphas get them too. Sometimes it's non-traditional in that world for the alpha to wear a claiming bite, things like that. There's fuck, and then Dean doesn't claim them, and he's like, oh, why do you thought you could bite me? And Dean's like, oh, I didn't know if you wanted to, blah blah blah. And they're all like, oh my god, I've loved you forever. It's the cutest fucking thing. It's the cutest. Actually there is no post fucking. The rest of this fic is entirely fucking. And it's just a really good.
Do they fall asleep?
No, I don't think they do.
But they're close.
They're snuggling.
They're snuggling.
It's real cute.
Yeah.
And then right at the end, Dean throws out that he wants Sam to fuck him. Which is, that can be taboo in this. Also, another thing that we probably should have mentioned, alphas tend to have enormous dicks. That tends to be like a trait of an alpha to have like a big dick. And sometimes you get omegas that have like what would be considered human normal, and sometimes they have like smaller, more vestigial genitalia, because it's not, you don't, if you're a male,
necessary.
you don't need, you're not going to impregnate anything, because that tends to be, when you're looking at Wincest, if it's that kind of trope where omegas tend to be, their genitals tend to be smaller, that you'll usually have either Sam or Dean. Oh, it's bigger than usual for an omega. Isn't that nice? That's so cute. Isn't that cute? But yeah, it's just a really good, nice, traditional example of ABO. Like this was the one that Sandra picked out of the two that I gave her. I don't remember what the other one was.
I liked it because I felt like the dynamics were very it was very clear, like, once
it was empowered omegas.
Yeah, once Sam was in the heat thing, like it's like it was a switch, right? Like it's kind of like he fell into, I guess, all of the tropey things that I imagine from an Omegaverse, with the Alpha and an Omega situation, and Dean very much upheld his Alpha side of the pair. So yeah,
and it's real cute and real. Like,
I do like how they
Sam
used baby. I liked that too, because you already, again, from knowing the episode, but then how it kind of veers off. But it still really just hold true to, as I was saying earlier, how Dean feels about his relationship to Sam as a protector. I got that right away. Like, not just that wanting to claim him, but he's got to come to his own decision, but that he's going to protect Sam from everything. And like, that was like his mission, even if he didn't think he could have what he wanted, it was still there. So I liked that part of it too, of the story. So yeah, so now we're non-traditional ABO.
And again, these are, we went by, when me and Jim were picking these, we went by the author's tags. So they're not necessarily what we would consider non-traditional. We went by what the author had tagged them as.
So this one, the hat one, is Missing Pieces by Kitten of Doomage. And it's Dean Winchester / reader, Sam Winchester / reader. I'm guessing that's probably the non-traditional aspect of it, where you've got, for the summary, you're Sam's Omega, but you've always had a bond with Dean, even if he's intent on satisfying his rut elsewhere. But the mark, again, we get Mark of Cain, Dean, but the mark makes that difficult when he can't bring himself to trust anyone. So there's the
non-traditional part of this one would be that typically an alpha and omega pair tend to be, true mates, soulmates, bonded, pair bonded, whatever. They don't tend to share. Again, another common thing to see in this trope is you can't break a bond. If someone dies, their mate will, wither and die too. You just don't. It's for life, for better or worse.
Okay.
So I think that's the subversion here, the non-traditional, that Sam is able to share.
Yeah, because he says like he wants you, and you're always going to be missing a piece of yourself without him. He's basically just like, go to him, because I think they know that he's dealing with some stuff with the mark, and so he's just like, just, we've done our thing, go. And she goes and she, confronts Dean, and he's like, his bedroom door was closed, but you could hear him now grunting and growling. Pressing up against the door, you closed your eyes, inhaling deeply. Everything went quiet. You pulled back, frowning, jumping in surprise when the door was slung open. Sweaty and panting, dressed in only a pair of boxer shorts that were soaked through and clinging to everything, Dean glared at you with hunched shoulders, one hand on the door frame and the other on the door. Mega, he snarled, and you shuddered, suddenly feeling very small. So then it's, he's telling her to go back to your alpha. Sam told
very
me to come to
dismissive,
you.
really.
Yeah, like
you smidge, fuck off. Like, yeah, no, I'm standing outside your bedroom door while you furiously masturbate and you're sweaty and filthy. For the lols, this is how I get my rocks off, motherfucker.
he told me to come to you, and he's like, I can't. I'll hurt you. She's like, you don't know that, and she just says, he says I'm dangerous. She says because of the mark. He says no, because of me. She's not leaving. And then they talk about again, like the whole bonding thing. He says, she says, stop putting yourself through this. You know what happens if you don't. I go feral. Doesn't give me the freedom to do what I want. And so he's really trying not to. Again, this is like, I don't know, it just feels like this is a thing for
Such
Dean.
a gentleman.
But probably more in the het, I think, aspects of it. And I'm sure it's different in different het stories, but I'm just sensing, that it's like he's really trying to be gentle or like make sure again, the consent issue, I think, is just very important in this one as well. But then she's like, she's kind of like trying to take a little bit of the reins off, like showing him that she really wants this. And then it just kind of like, they just go to town because she's like, I want you to not me. And then it's just like, okay.
And there's fucking. And then there's fucking. And then this is only there's a lot of fucking. It's only a short fic, but like the majority of it is fucking.
It's fucking. It's very good. It's very good. And he's like, saying a lot like dirty, like again, dirty talk should be in all of this.
I think in both of Kitten of Doomage's fics, we see the gentleman Dean, that the lady always finishes first before he does anything. That's always, and I mean, we're not complaining. This is weird when I can see your face. I don't like that.
And I think they I think they might fall asleep because again, like I think they've nodded, right? Yeah, and so they kind of don't have a choice.
Could you stop calling me out for all these fics that end with everyone falling asleep? I feel very attacked right now.
And so then but it's just she promises she's not going to go anywhere and says neither are you, and so I guess they're going to make this work.
Yeah, because that's a thing for that. Dean says, "Oh, you're here tonight, but you're going to go back to Sam, and I can't, I can't have you and then let you go." And she's like, "No. And I'll tell you, maybe they're going to drop a rota or something. I don't know. You get Sundays to yourself." Dean gets you Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Sam gets you Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, and Sundays are yours. Sundays are the day where you lay fucking still and don't move while your body tries to recover.
When I remember reading that one like original romance, like wherever it came from, like I'm just there's a lot they're taking turns, and she's just like there, and there's the breeding and all that stuff. An interesting take on, like you talked about the mating. And most of some of these have this next one has a breeding kink listed. This one, my God, there was so much going on in this one. There was a lot. This Alpha for Alpha series one. You need to explain this one.
This one, Sandra was like, it's got to be under 10K. And so I said to Dreamer, it really needs to be under 8K. But she came, I was like, Sandra says 10K, but like 8K. Because Sandra does so many things. So Sandra only has a finite amount of time to read.
And I don't read that fast. I just don't.
Yeah. So we try and also I dropped the ball on this one for weeks. I was supposed to do this weeks ago and give this shit to Sandra. And she kept going, you need to do this. And I was like, shit, I'll do that. And then she was like, you need to do this. And I was like, fuck, I'll do that. And then we were planning like our recording out for the rest of the year. And she was like, we're doing this next week. And you haven't. And I was like, oh, fuck, I'm going to do that now. So, yeah. But this one, Dee put this one in. And she was like, it's close to the line, but, it's so fucking good. And it is so fucking good.
She gave me a cry emoji when I was like, I don't know if I can read them all. She's like, but it's only this. And I'm like, I know. It's just because it takes me a while to read things. That's the only reason. It's me. It's not you. It's me.
Well, I didn't expect you to read all 6 of them. I was like, pick like from the summary or read a little bit of it. But Dee was like, it's only 6. And I'm like,
I ended up reading them all just because I really wanted to figure out which one, I wanted, to like say, okay, because I figured once I picked one, you would be able to like run with the description and stuff of it. And yeah, this one had a lot going on. It does have dirty talk in the additional tags, which is good. I think this should be standard.
Yeah. Sandra likes that.
I do.
Sandra likes that. So this one is So Much Better Than You Know by Hands Across the Sea, and it is part 1 of the Alpha for Alpha series, which y'all know I've read this. I've read all of them before we even did this. So this is Alpha Sam and Alpha Dean, and it's a dry spell, y'all. Dean's been, I think Dean might have been harboring a crush on Sam for a while, maybe, but it's kind of it's becoming more of a thing now because they can't, wherever they are in the United States, there just ain't no Omegas, guys. They just can't get the rocks off, and it's becoming a problem. So yeah, it's becoming a problem, and the longer they go, the more Dean keeps looking at Sam like, maybe though. But it's just Sam. It's not other alphas, it's just Sam. But that is the non-traditional part of this, that they are alpha. And, he tries to suppress it, tries to drink it, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, he goes, as we kind of come into this, they're in the middle of a hunt, whatever. Sam says he's going to the gym. Dean says, I'm going to go have a drink, try and get laid, whatever.
Sam's really a bit of a cheaky little bugger in this. Like he doesn't, yeah, but Sam, no holds barred. Yeah, it's really like Alpha. Yeah. Sam awakens Dean. So yeah, Dean goes to the bar, strikes out, whatever. That's Sam not traditional, I think, too, just in general. Like Sam's the one that's like awakening Dean is like kind of a thing.
Yeah. There's a lot of untraditional things in this. But Dean he's real drunk, and he's like, look, what do you do when there are no Omega? So in this universe, Sam went to Stanford and blah, 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 blah. So Sam's like, I fuck an alpha. And Dean's like, you what now? What? No, what? Shut up, tell me more. So Sam details that that is what he does, and like he discovered this in college, fraternity, blah, blah, blah. And then it kind of comes out that he never, I don't think this one is tagged as past Jess Sam, but like there was past Jess Sam. It's not tagged as it, but yeah. But it comes out that Sam never bonded with Jess because they tried and it just didn't work. And Dean's like, oh, damn. And Sam's like, no, I was already emotionally bonded to someone else, you idiots. So yeah, that comes out that they kind of both been, holding a torch for the other. And yeah, no, it's I'm gonna be honest, it's a little weird to have Sam in the driving seat teaching Dean about fucking. But yeah, you have this really, really great, sort of Sam. He's not submissive, but he is trying to be reassuring to Dean that he knows what to do and he'll make it good and blah 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 blah. So they kind of fiercely make out against the side of the Impala, as one does. What else are you going to do on a Friday night? And then go back to the motel.
This reminded me a little bit of the towards the end of Pine Sweat, when they're in the car and Sam's almost like this. I mean, there's actual licking going on in here, but this sort of pushing Dean's buttons, just and
a little bit, yeah,
just a little bit, yeah. I really like that. He's like, "Easy, Tiger, we ain't there yet."
Yeah,
it's damn. It's very funny.
But yeah, so kind of we're in Dean's POV, and he's very alphas are pretty animalistic in this world, so they'll fight and things like that. So Dean's he's worried what is going to happen because Sam is not. He's not submissive. He's not just going to back down. Not that Dean particularly wants to dominate Sam, but he's concerned how that. Yeah, you see it quite a lot that your alpha or your omega is almost like a sort of different entity in your mind, like your hindbrain, things like that. Yeah, and you, the person, might be okay with something, but your alpha will be fighting against it, and it's kind of like a little bit of separation. And Dean's concerned that they're going to come to blows, and it's going to be a fight, and it's going to be a real problem. But it turns out great. It turns out Sam can suck dick like a fucking pro. Who would have guessed? I guessed. So we go back to the motel. Nobody fucks anybody else. It's just blowjobs and stuff like that, and it's it's fucking great. It's great, but it doesn't end there, guys. It doesn't end there.
So are they they're in the motel room for a couple days though, right? They do a time jump.
Yeah, by the time they leave the motel room 3 days later, both of them are sore down to their bones. Dean hasn't had so many orgasms in his life, his jaw aching and his cock tender from Sam's constant attention. Sam looks mightily proud of himself, and shit, Dean can't fucking blame him. They just survived a monstrously intense rut without killing each other, probably ruined a queen size bed. The other one isn't in much better shape. And even though they tried to clean it up, left cum staining most of the surfaces in the room. The next people who stay there, well, Dean feels sorry for them. He didn't mean for it to turn into an alpha rut hut, but nature's got a funny way of dictating things that aren't easily understandable. So yeah, pretty animalistic alphas, like territory marking, scent marking.
But we're not stopping there. No, we're not. No, of course not.
No, we're not. So they, it's have a nice time, but they haven't knotted each other. That's not been a thing. But they're still kind of like, they're still kind of goofing around and stuff like that. And then we
there's a hunt.
Yeah, there's a hunt. So that's where that goes. And
then we get Kasey's favorite, dirty and bloody
sweaty
Winchesters.
Just really like it when they're mucky. Let's tell you. Just really, really like it when they're
There's
mucky. So
blood.
they kill
So much blood.
yeah. So they kill the I don't think it is actually a skinwalker, which is funny. We were just talking about skinwalkers. Yeah, it is a skinwalker. But yeah, no. So again, they're traipsing back to baby, and I think that's a common supernatural trope, is to fuck after a hunt because you have like adrenaline and blah blah blah.
Yeah.
But then the way that we go all the way off the reservation with this one is Sam bites Dean. Just as like just like a playful bite, like who else like try to rip the jugular out of your sex partner? No, it's not like that. It's just a bite. But for whatever reason, it's just fucking magic, just a little bite, and Dean's producing slick. Fucking hell, still an alpha, just now with a self-lubricating system, which honestly is real fucking handy. Like, it's handy, y'all.
It is handy.
But
it's handy.
That's when they're like, Dean's like, oh my god, not me, I need it, fucking help. Still an alpha though. Yeah, still, like, he doesn't turn into an omega, he's still an alpha. Just has this little, self-lubricating ass. Where does it come from? We don't fucking know. Nobody asks questions. So yeah, Sam just kind of like throws him in the back seat with his ass hanging out, and they fuck.
He's like half hanging out the window and stuff like that. Like, just the visual of it is just like,
it's great.
It's
yeah,
great.
It's fucking great. But yeah, so they fuck. Sam knots Dean. It's really good. This one has, this one did have, breeding kink, and it's like dirty talk breeding kink. The dirty talk in this is fucking exquisite.
Yeah.
By the way, gold star.
It is good. It is good.
Gold star.
There's a lot of like that mine thing.
Yeah.
Like, and that kind of like, maybe that's the thing too, that kind of like switches people's brains too. I think that's why this kind of like reminds me of this kind of stuff reminds me of like some of the Mark Kane Dean fics that I've read. Yeah, like that, it kind of has that where he's not really in control of himself in situations. So it kind of like, he's really going for just like the basic of instincts when it comes to certain situations. And yeah, there's a lot going on. So
they don't fall asleep though. That ends with them in the back of the car. So you have to assume that they do eventually, somebody gets up and drives the car because they're like fucking hanging out the back seat of the car.
Because they have to wait, right? They have to wait.
Yeah. You have to wait. And that's also, you can have knots that go down in like 5 minutes. You can have knots that tie them together for hours. It's entirely up to you. How long do you want to keep them awkwardly spooning? It's entirely up to you as the author. It's your choice. So we have we're going to share the stats document. And we're also this is in a separate document because I made it and sent it to Sandra and she was like, oh, we'll just save this. But the two fics that didn't make the Sandra cut are in here as recommendations. We also took to Discord, and we got a recommendation from 67 Automatic in the Wincest Book Club, and that is And It's You That I Want by the author according to the law. We have recommendation from our Discord, which is the Alpha for Alpha series, which is we covered the first one of it under traditional, but that was recommended to us by Fictional Lemons. We have A Broken World series by Misha Minion 69 and what the fuck would you pronounce that? Sydney. Yeah, clever. Sydney. And that is a series rec by BJ. I believe that is Destiel. That was rec by BJ. And then Empowered Omegas.
Yeah, that was the other one.
Yeah, Empowered Omegas by Morazella?
Morazella, maybe?
Morazella. Yeah, let's go with that. Let us know if we're wrong. So that was a pick by Dreamer that didn't make the Sandra cut. Very sad. And if I had one wish, love would feel like this by Syncestiel, which was my, I think that was my non-traditional that also didn't make the Sandra cut. I've remembered which BJ fic you were talking about now. Is it the one with the camper van?
There's a couple different
series.
It's a series, I think. Yeah, and it was like it's like it's an AU of Sam and Dean. I know situation where they're like
it's a female reader, though.
Almost like it's almost like a mob. Feels like a mob feel to it, like a mob family. I'll have to find it. I'll find it, and we'll find it, and we'll
put it in the description. Yeah. Just because another one that is a personal recommendation of mine is Not My Fault, also by BJ Darrelly Starscream. Because it came from a Discord discussion where I was like, there just isn't enough alpha females fucking Omegas. Omega like Sam and Dean. There's just I just want to see more alpha females, blah blah blah. And BJ took it and ran with it. And then broke my fucking heart. She broke my heart at the end of it. But it is alpha female reader Omega Dean, and it is chef's kiss. It's fucking perfect. And if the series that Sandra isn't thinking of isn't the one I'm thinking of with like the RV camper van thing, I will find that as well, and I will put it in the description.
I think
she's looking at it now.
I think it's like I think it's the Holler Me Home series. So I think it's like A Strange Detour is like the first one.
Let me look.
You're an Omega, fresh off a daring rescue of Alpha Dean. Fate wouldn't be so cruel as to bring on a heat when you're seeing him home. Oh wait,
yeah, but they're in a fucking.
Are they maybe it's another one then that I'd read of theirs.
I'm sure that they're in a. That rings true.
Calling a Professional. That's what it was. Part 1 of Professional. You're a career-oriented young Omega, too preoccupied with school to have a dating life. Your image-oriented family decides enough is enough and gives you a screamingly inappropriate present. A night with a full-service alpha escort. Emphasis on full. And stuff happens. So it's ABO Dynamics.
Who's that by?
It's by BJ.
Is it really?
That's
the Hollow Me Home is one I'm thinking of where she's Fate wouldn't be so cruel as we're gonna hate.
Yeah, because I like
but that is that in the RV she's driving him back to wherever and her heat comes on while he's in the RV. So that's the one I was thinking of.
Okay.
So we will also link those two series by BJ, Hollow Me Home, and what was the other one you said?
It's Professional, but the first one is Calling a Professional. That's like one of the first ones I read. I read of BJ's.
Yeah. I'll pop this in the BJ, prolific. And we love that. We stand this for you, BJ. Thank you.
Her notes. Blame the walking, talking PWP device that is Dean Winchester. I love that.
Yeah.
That disclaimer.
But also as well, we couldn't include it in any of this because this is a Supernatural podcast. If you're a Jensen fan, if you're a fan of Big Sky or Bo Allen, but mostly if you're a Jensen fan, she wrote a fucking kick-ass Bo Allen female reader ABO.
Also a different, like, not like, like really trying to suppress it. Again, like just like the being like trying to be a gentleman, and then when it's like can't, and it's just like, yeah, I could totally see Bo Allen like in that. That was a really good.
I didn't watch Big Sky. I don't know anything about him apart from the fact that he wears that jacket, and I'm kind of really into that jacket.
Mm-hmm.
I like the hair. I'm really into that fucking jacket though. And I loved it. So basically go check out Kitten of Doomage for your reader insert fix, and go check out BJ Darrelly Starscream for your reader insert fix as well.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so all that being said, Sandra was very positive about all of those fixes that we discussed, but this trope is just not vibing with you. Just Sandra's not here for it. I'm gonna stare deep into your eyes with a listening face.
So what I was thinking about too is like, I don't know if it's the breeding aspect of it that some of the Some of them do.
Breeding in general or mpreg? Because some people like mpreg squicks a lot of people out.
I don't think the mpreg necessarily is the squick for me. I just think there's a very big emphasis on some of them is breeding and mine, and like I do like that like dirty talk aspect of it, but I don't know. It's just I don't know. Do you have any idea why it's just not?
No,
because
sorry, I really love this trope.
It should kind of, but for some reason it's just not my go-to for it. Maybe it's more like I feel like I can get a lot of Dean like this in other het fics because I keep comparing that feel of it, and it also feels like it's just a very standard to me. If you're talking male female, the roles are kind of like very traditional in a way, unless you get the subverted stuff where you get like, a different Omega. And maybe I just haven't found like one that's really kind of like done that for me. And I even like if they get shared, like if readers shared between Sam and Dean, I mean, you can get that in other fics too. I mean, hello, Winchester sandwich. So it's like, how are we changing it in enough of a way that it really sparks my interest? And I don't know if it's just the overall universe of it that I just don't really jive with. And I mean, you talked about it too. If it started with J2 and kind of like, this wins, like, if I didn't really read a lot of that stuff to begin with, I don't think I really would have gravitated maybe towards that whole universe as a whole. It's funny. It's funny. I can't help it. But yeah, that's the only thing I can think of. Because again, a lot of the stuff that I've read, like I like a lot of what BJ's written. I like a lot of like what Kitten of Doomage has written, but it's just not my go-to for stuff. Yeah.
Because I hadn't really read any het ABO until I started looking up for this stuff. Mm-hmm. I tend to read male anyway, but that's kind of where I get my ABO. And I think for me, it's kind of like the best of both worlds, because you get that kind of like female self lubrication, blah 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 blah. But everybody's got a cock, and I'm just really into that. Mm-hmm. Look and see me, I'm just really into that.
Yeah.
Whereas I think I can see if you are more into het fics, Dean reader, Sam reader, it's not really bringing anything new to the table.
You have to like the universe. You have to really like to explore that aspect of it. And I think I'm just not. I just don't think I'm there for that. I like it when Dean gets possessive, but like I said, I've read a lot of really great Mark of Cain Dean that hits those buttons for me, and he's just very just like dominating and in a way that's very similar to what I'm reading in a lot of these fics too. So yeah, maybe it's the just not part that's just not it's for me. It's like it's just like it's just not my kink, and that's okay.
Yeah, and that's okay.
And I'm happy that it's other people's. If I ever find something that really just like, oh my gosh, this is the best thing ever, I will. If anybody thinks they know of a het fic that might change my mind, let me know. Like I said, I loved BJ's Bill Warland.
Not my fault.
One. Yeah,
not my fault. By BJ.
I'll give that one. I'll give that one a try.
Write that down.
One to read.
Yeah,
it's in the list, so I will definitely give it a go.
Yeah.
But I liked the world in the professional because it was different in a way where the Omega was kind of pushing against what was expected of her family, and then finds this alpha, helps him out, and he helps her out,
Is that with Dean's the like escort. Fancy pants escort? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I've read that one.
And I liked how BJ took the characters and placed them, into an AU that felt very appropriate and felt very right. I like it when that happens. And we'll also have to have a discussion at some point, I think, because we talked about this before, I think in another episode, of how we view. I know you've said kind of like with the Wincest trope, like they can kind of go either way for you, alpha or omega. but I feel like people have
Top, bottom, dom. So
as
I
we
can't.
come, people have a lot of like
People have feelings with a
Feelings about
capital F.
and I wonder
about
if that's a
this.
little bit different too, like in the RPF region, of this. Yeah. So it's interesting. It's interesting.
Yeah,
no.
I know. I can totally see it. You can get a lot of what ABO offers. You can get elsewhere in hetfics, like you said, that kind of possessive, that kind of mind, and the kind of the physical aspects. It's het. Like with women, they come with a self-lubricating system. You don't need to like put that in, like it's already there.
Yeah.
It's not necessary. So you're not necessarily. And I mean, you can play around with like scents and soulmates, and true mates, and things like that. So I can, and that is not to disparage anybody that writes ABO in het, because they're they're wonderful. They're wonderful. But if you're not inherently interested in the trope itself, like Sandra kind of isn't, I can see why you would be like.
I've just noticed that for me, supernatural, like what I like, I like the magic aspect of it. I've realized how much I'm into like the witchy spell side of it.
Yeah.
Like that really gets me. I like those kinds of stories. And I mean, this is very much more like, what's going on in yourself, and you know what I mean? So it's like, it's like, it's supernatural, but not like mystical as much. So maybe that's it too. It's really getting into more like the biology, and then how people are either going with or working against. I think the transgender part of it, though, like the subtropes, like the dysphoria and stuff, it's those things when you read those about how they like the not fitting in. I can see too, like, like for you, like reading a lot of like stuff like that too, might kind of like, but might hit buttons in a way you don't want to. So
I don't tend to read that kind of stuff, because I don't like, if I'm reading something like that, it's because I want this magical, this magic wand that's going to fix it in a way that I don't have in real life. And if the magical fix it is, oh no, you just adjust. I'm like, well, I'm in my 30s and I fucking haven't. So come on now.
Yeah. So
but
I think we need to ask too, like if anybody's got like, a fic that
gets fixed without just going, oh, look, you found the right person to fuck, But like also coming at it from the perspective of a trans person, I'm a really huge fan of being able to mash genitals together like that. Like everybody can have a cock, and I'm really into that. But then you got this whole self-lubricating system that is just frankly fucking helpful.
Isn't there somewhere they have both?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Sometimes you'll have male omegas but it's solid butt. And sometimes they'll have two holes. I think what I like about it is the possibilities are endless. But for me, I like when it comes to writing, I wrote for this trope because it was a really great way to subvert expectations in a way that wouldn't be offensive. If I'd have just written Dean and Soldier Boy and just made Soldier Boy the bottom, I didn't really have a way to do that wasn't kind of rapey and offensive, but making him an Omega and playing into that, and like my fic really does lean into that kind of stereotype of Omegas being the lowest in society. And, if you haven't read my fic Not for Sale, fair warning, Dean is pretty mean for parts of it, and he really leans into, sort of like humiliating Soldier Boy about being a soup that's an Omega, and what a waste it is, and what a disappointment.
I'm going to be the Dean apologist and feel like there's a reason, but there's a reason behind it too. Like,
it's not. He's not being cruel for the sake of. No, he is being cruel for the sake of being cruel. But in his defense, Soldier Boy broke his fucking nose. Yeah. In his defense. Yeah. But also, it is just a front. It is just a way for both of them to be able to get through this, because neither of them wants to be there. Yeah. Neither of them. This is not it's consensual in as far as it can be consensual. Neither of them would pick each other off the street to mate, Yeah. And Dean very much redeems himself at the end, but I did really lean into that kind of, like Dean says, like, a soup who's an Omega who's barren, like, fucking what is the point of you?
Yeah.
basically.
Yeah.
And I couldn't have done that any other way. And that's whenever I'm writing, I have to be writing something that I can't do any other way. So I could put Sam and Dean in an Omega, in an Omegaverse, and I could get real fucking deep into the lore, and I could get it really into the biology. But I'm just kind of like, I like to twist it. I like to move. What if it just bends a little? That whole kind of. If you've seen The Boys and Soldier Boy, he is the absolute, he thinks, pinnacle of masculinity. And oh my God, nobody's ever been a man like he's been a man, to kind of, just like put him on his knees and be able to humiliate him like that is, but then also be able to then get into his head and be like, actually, it's, it's a subversion of a subversion, because this is the only way I can accept this. Blah, blah, blah. I could have spent days. I could have spent weeks.
I liked how I really liked how you just that was one that was like to the point, got it, get it. It was just like boom. It was like I feel like it was one of those like magical, like I'm going to do this thing and it's going to happen in like days, right? Like it just didn't. It felt like all of a sudden you're like I wrote this thing, and it was just like
it didn't take. I think that maybe took a week. It didn't take long to write.
Yeah.
But it is a favorite trope of mine, and I will go and seek it out and things like that. But it's not a trope of Sandra's, and that's totally fine.
So, but we wanted to talk about it because we got a request, and we're like, okay, let's do the thing. Hopefully, we'll do another few more of these, and if you join our
Discord, getting a playlist.
And if you join our Discord. And you get a behind the scenes membership. You can help us decide on some of the things that we're doing. Yeah, become a Ko-fi member.
You will get access to our behind the scenes section in Discord, and you will be able to put forward ideas and vote on polls about what we're going to talk about next. And
these have actually gone across pretty well. I'm really happy. The sex bond one did great. It did great.
Yeah.
So I'm glad if you're listening and you're enjoying it. We do want to do more of these. So maybe we found a little side playlist that people are finding interesting.
So many playlists.
So many playlists. But I guess we should wrap up because we're going to have to get ready for
we've got an hour and then we have to.
Yeah. So let us know your thoughts on this trope. What do you like it? Do you not like it? Do you have any suggestions for Kasey, for me, listening to what we, kind of like or are struggling to find? If you want to throw me some ideas. I'm always willing to give some free. Just please don't make it 100,000 K fic because I might never get to it. Or if I do, I'll only read the first part.
I'm gonna read it. Part one. That's the whole thing. That's the whole thing. She won't read it.
Yeah, I'll write one of those, but I won't. But I won't read them. Apparently, I don't have time to do that anymore. So, but we're gonna wrap up. We want to thank you for listening and let us know what you thought of the episode. You can email us at idlingintheimpala@gmail.com. Comment on Spotify in the Q&A section. Leave a YouTube comment. Join our Discord and chat with fellow idlers and us in real time. Check out our merch store, which is another fun way to show your support. You can find details for everything on our website. That's idlingintheimpala.com. Want to fuel our supernatural road trip? Consider joining us on Ko-fi for as little as $1 a month. We have perks to go along with different membership tiers and would love to have you along for the ride.
Don't forget, you can always support us for free by liking, commenting, subscribing on YouTube, and following, rating, and sharing on audio platforms. Engagement really helps us with the algorithms. All hail their benevolence. As always, we have the causes that we support in the description. So from me, you have LGBTQ plus talking charities. From Sandra, you have mental health charities. And the main cause is that we continue to champion, highlight, spotlight, any other adjective that means draw attention to, is World Central Kitchen and Doctors Without Borders. Both of these charities are on the ground working in the Ukraine to help those still affected by Russia's unlawful invasion of the Ukraine, and in Gaza, which is in the crossfire of the war between Israel and Hamas. This is not political. It does not matter which side of these you stand on. We are coming from a purely humanitarian view here. There are people in the Ukraine and Gaza that are trapped, cut off from basic human rights like food, water, and shelter, and they are dying. They didn't ask for war, and we want to help the people risking their lives to help them. If you cannot or do not want to donate financially, that's absolutely fine. Just sharing the links around social media helps massively to keep these issues in the public eye and get people in need all the help that we can. So with that, we will say thank you for joining us in the back seat, and we will see you next time, guys. Bye-bye.
Bye.